Hey guys! So welcome to another video. As you've probably noticed, this video is going to be a little bit shorter today because instead of doing a normal 3-chapter Bible study like I normally do, I'm going to be starting a series where we're going to do kind of a rough overview of the book of Hebrews, and I'm really excited for it. But before we dive right on in, I want to showcase our tea of the day. So first of all, this mug was actually, funny story about this mug. This mug was a candle that I got from Goodwill, and I got it because it has a little chip in it, and so I was like, hey, I can have a teacup that I can say that it's like Chip from Beauty and the Beast, so I got it. So today's tea of the day, if I can get the lighting, there we go. No? Today's tea of the day is by the Republic of Tea, and it's one of their cup of cake teas, and it is the caramel vanilla one. And it is a fine black tea with caramel and vanilla, and it tastes amazing. It tastes like a cake, but in a cup, which, you know, makes sense since it's a cup of cake tea. But anyways, it's really good. I would highly recommend. The first cup of it that I had, I didn't like a ton, but then after that, it's really good. So again, would recommend. But I want to get right on started because we may as well, right? So, I'm going to just start our little study of the book of Hebrews by going over some fun facts, because, you know, fun facts are cool. So, some of the facts that I learned in the past about the book of Hebrews is that it was originally written for the Jews that had accepted Jesus, but were kind of turning back to Judaism, so that they could learn about, or it was written to them so that they would realize what they were doing and be able to flip back to following Jesus as they were wanting to. The author of the book of Hebrews is unknown, and it was probably written before the temple's destruction in 70 AD. And the purpose of Hebrews is to present Christ's superiority to angels and the great prophets of the Old Testament. So, some key points within the book of Hebrews are Jesus' superiority is one of the key themes throughout the book of Hebrews, and Hebrews affirms Jesus' identity as God through testimonies and scriptures, and it can help us conclude that, sorry if I'm looking down, I have notes because there was a lot of things, and it helps us conclude that he is greater than religion or any angel or superior to any Jewish leader, like Abraham, Moses, Joshua, those guys in the Old Testament, as well as any other priest. So, page 1 of notes down, woo woo! Another theme throughout the entire book one of the other key points in the book of Hebrews is that Jesus is our high priest. So in the Old Testament, the high priest was the one that represented the Jews before God. And as our ultimate high priest, Jesus guarantees access to God the Father for us. And another theme in the book of Hebrews is sacrifice, because Jesus' sacrifice was the ultimate fulfillment of all the Old Testament sacrifices represented, which was God's forgiveness for our sins. And then one of the other key points that I'm going to say, just as my top 3, 4 I can count, is that we gain our maturity through endurance. And what I mean by that is that faith enables Christians to face trials, faith enables us Christians to face our trials confidently. Genuine faith includes commitment to stay true to God when we face the fire and when we are under fire, and endurance builds character, which leads to our victory through Christ. But chapter 1, we're just going to start right on to chapter 1. So, I'm just going to apologize now if I'm a little bit all over the place. I got a new Bible, which is cool. It is by Crossway Books. It's beautiful. It's a journaling Bible, so it has space in the margins for notes. It's the English Standard Version. I love it already. But I have my original, notes and everything in my other Bible, but I'm going to use that Bible for referencing the other verses because I like this translation better. So, yes, that's what's happening. So if it's a little spacey, I'm sorry. But, chapter 1, I'm just going to read the book and then I'll stop with the verses that I had thoughts on, so hopefully that's cool with you guys. But yes, let's dive right on in here. So, Hebrews chapter 1, starting in verse 1, it says, "Long ago, at many times and in many ways, God spoke to our fathers by the prophets. But in the last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed the heir of all things. Through him he created the world. He is the radiance of the glory of God and the exact imprint of his nature, and he upholds the universe by the word of his power. After making purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of his majesty on high. Having become as much superior to angels as the name he inherited is more excellent than theirs." So I'm going to stop there. I just read verses 1 through 4. So my thoughts on verse 1, first of all, is it's important for us to remember that nobody in the Old Testament, or none of the old prophets, had the whole truth. They each had a different part of it, which is why God kept sending them. It's not like they all had the huge big picture, grand scheme of things image in their mind, because they didn't. They each only had a part of it. And it's important for us to realize that in the same way that each of the Old Testament prophets only had a piece of the puzzle and only had a glimpse of the picture versus seeing the entire thing all at once, that's how our lives are. We can only see pieces and bits and parts of our story, but God has the whole grand scheme of things image, and he'll slowly reveal each part of that to us as we mature and as we grow. In the same way that as the nation of Israel grew, he kept bringing in more prophets, which would show them more and more the picture of what they were supposed to be looking for in what the Messiah would be like, and, after Jesus came, and what our lives are supposed to look like, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So, bam. And then my next thought is from verse 3, which I read already. But verse 3, I think it's important to note that not only is Jesus superior to the prophets because he's God, but he has the entire picture, like I just said. It's not like he's getting glimpses and pieces like the prophets were. He sees the whole thing already. He kind of invented the whole thing, so he knows what's going on. And it's through Jesus and through the Holy Spirit that God reveals his plans for us to us. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting to note that I just think it's cool, because obviously we know that Jesus is superior to the prophets, but it's cool how they say that. And that, in verse 4, how it says, having become as much superior to angels as the name he has inherited is more excellent than theirs. I think that's important to note. Then verse 5, it says, for to which the angels did God ever say, you are my son, today I have begotten you. Or again, I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. This I also think is important because the angels are created beings. They are not God's son. I hung out with a Mormon the other day, and they were telling me about how the Latter-day Saints, believe that that Jesus and Lucifer and all the angels are all brothers and sisters, and as are we, which, to an extent, I can kind of see that. We're all brothers and sisters through Christ, but Christ is still superior to us. It's not like we're all created equal, if that makes sense. We're made equal through Jesus' sacrifice, but he still has more superiority and more power than we do, right? Makes sense? Makes sense? Cool. Okay. So, in verse 6, it says, and again, when he brings the firstborn into the world, he says, let all God's angels worship him. And I just think it's also important to note that, let me flip there, when, I like how it points this out, because, in verse 6, because in Revelation 5:11 through 12, which says, then I looked again, and I heard the voices of thousands and millions of angels around the throne, and of the living beings and the elders, and they sang in a mighty chorus, worthy is the Lamb who was slaughtered to receive power and riches, and wisdom and strength, and honor and glory and blessing. So it's important for us to realize that, Jesus is superior, and that we're all going to be worshiping him, including the angels, which... I don't know. I think that was an interesting thing to know, which shows us again that Jesus, he has more superiority than the angels and the Old Testament prophets and the original leaders of Israel. And I'm going to be back because I've read the evidence and I need to check it. So, uno momento. All right, I am back. So, we just finished so my notes fall all over the place. We just did verse 6. So, verse 7 says, I'm going to just continue from verse 7. So it says, of the angels he says, he makes his angels winds, and his masters a flame of fire. But of the Son he says, your throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of uprightness is the scepter of your kingdom. You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, your God has anointed you with the oil of gladness beyond your companions. And you, Lord, laid the foundation of the earth at the beginning, and the heavens are the work of your hands. They will perish, but you will remain. They will all wear out like a garment. Like a robe, you will roll them up. Like a garment, they will be changed. But you are the same, and your years have no end. I'm going to stop here again for a second and just share some thoughts that I had on verses 10, 11, and 12. So verse 10 I like because I just think it's cool that God is again just describing Jesus' role. Or I guess the author is describing, but God inspired it. So by that, I'm saying God is describing Jesus' part in creation again, which we see in... I really should have flipped here, I'm sorry. We see in John chapter 1, verses 1 through 5, which says, "In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the very beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it." So just thought it was cool that it was reiterated again in verse 10, as well as John 1 through 5. But then 11 and 12 says that even creation will pass away, which is also shown to us in... Sorry, I keep flipping. I really should have written these down, but I didn't, so... Oh well. Where are you? It's hiding from me. I'll find it. I'm sorry. I'm slow. Okay. So 2 Peter 3:10 through 11 says, "But the day of the Lord will come as unexpectedly as a thief. Then the heavens will pass away with a terrible noise, and the very elements themselves will disappear in fire, and the earth and everything on it will be found to deserve judgment. Since everything around us is going to be destroyed like this, what holy and godly lives you should live." So I just think that it's important to reiterate not only in Hebrews 1:11 through 12, but it's also said again in 2 Peter 3:10 and 11 is what I just said. Yes. But I just think it's really amazing and wonderful how throughout all of this, if we have Jesus as our rock and as our center, it'll be totally fine, and it's going to be amazing and wonderful. I mean, not amazing in the moment, but like, you know. So then, continuing on in verse 13, it says, "And to which of the angels has he ever said, 'Sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet'?" And again, I think it's really cool that the author, because we don't know who the author is, but it's interesting that he keeps quoting the Old Testament, because that shows us that whoever did write the book of Hebrews was very knowledgeable about the scriptures and knew what he was talking about, which I just think is really cool. So that's just a tangent that I like. But then the closing of Hebrews chapter 1 says in verse 14, and says in verse 14, "Are they not all ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation?" And, when it says, "Are they not ministering spirits sent out to serve for the sake of those who are to inherit salvation?" it's talking about the angels. So I actually want to read that in a different translation, because I think that, because I took these notes from a different translation, so just 1 second. So this was in the English Standard Version is when it says what I just read. But then Hebrews 1 verse 14 in the New Living Translation says, "Therefore, angels are only servants, spirits sent to care for people who will inherit salvation." And I think that I like the wording of that one better, actually. But I just think it's really cool to think about how, like, God sends angels down to guard and look after us and to, keep an eye on us, which we also see in Job when the angels report back to God about how Job is doing. And, like, I don't know, it's just really interesting to think about how, God sends these heavenly beings down just to watch out for us, not stalking us, but, to keep an eye on us, make sure we're doing okay after we accept Jesus into our hearts. And I just think that's really cool. I mean, I don't know, maybe you think that's weird. I think it's cool, but... those are all of my thoughts on Hebrews chapter 1. I'm proud of myself. We kept it under 20 minutes, so let's go. Go us. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Hebrews chapter 1, and then also some fun facts that I learned about Hebrews a couple years ago. But I just hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And if you guys like this style of video better, where we just do one chapter at a time, and I'm going to do more than just the first chapter of Hebrews, but I'm starting with that chapter. But anyway, sorry. If you guys like this style of video better than doing a section of 3 chapters, let me know in the comments or send me a message on Instagram. Which reminds me, I keep saying, I'm sorry. Dang it, I did it again. So, if you guys want to have more daily content, I will be back to doing daily. I just have I don't know why this cold has really took me down for the count. But daily For daily content, feel free to follow my Instagram down below. It is Tea and God, but again, I will link it in the description down below. And I just hope that you guys leave this place, or this video, this room, wherever you are, this day, this night, this afternoon, whatever time it is. I just hope that you leave knowing that you are so precious and loved by the God who created you, and just know that you're valued and that you are cared for, and that God is amazing and loves you, and the fact that he loves you is amazing. As always, I will see you guys next week, and I'm hoping to get this up on Tuesday, but I'm house sitting, so who knows when it's actually going up. But yes, I will see you guys next week, and thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to leave a like on the video, and subscribe, and or share the video with anybody that you think could get something out of it. But yeah, I hope that we all can continue in our journey in our faith and with our lovingly amazing cups of tea. And yeah, I will see you guys next week, now that I'm keep rambling. Alright, bye guys.